In. Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Success.
You did it.
It worked. Am I coming in loud and clear?
Oh, that's better.
Oh,
Hello?
Yep. Sound good?
Yeah.
Might have to try and edit
That's
this
good.
bit. Might have to try and edit this bit out.
It's okay.
Or not. Sorry, lung butter.
Lovely.
So, are we
Right.
going for the what we discussed earlier, the movie that changed my life?
Yeah.
We could actually call it that, couldn't we? We'll call this podcast.
Yeah.
You know, the movie that changed my life.
Okay.
Introduce ourselves first for the audience at home.
Okay. You
The
go first.
adoring audience. Well, my name is Ashley Beeching, and on my Facebook page, I am quoted as saying I'm a professional dreamer and Renaissance man. So take from that what you will, but also into nerd culture, geeky stuff, films, music, the lot. What about you, sir?
Well, my name's Kelvin Millen, sometimes known as Melvin.
I can vouch for that.
Or Millie. I don't really know what I am at the moment, but
You're a walrus.
Tried, yeah.
Kooky choo.
I tried to. I'm a walrus. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll do.
That'll do, innit? That covers a multitude of sins, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Make of that what you will.
Exactly. Maybe a nice earthen jar or a woven basket.
Yeah, I like that.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm just going to eat a banana because I'm hoping it'll give me a bit of brain power.
Oh, it's slightly phallic.
Well, it's very phallic. Yeah, yes, exactly. Indeed, it might
I've got
inspire
an
me.
image. I've got an image that I can't get out of my head now.
I'm sure everyone's got that image now. But please, I just want to reassure people I'm actually eating the banana. I'm not inserting it anywhere where it shouldn't belong. Only my cake hole.
That's all right then.
So yeah, I thought, well, I mean, I liked your initial your idea for the movie that changed your life. So why don't you open the proceedings, Melvin?
All right. Yeah. So.
And I can chip in with irrelevant. What do I say? Irreverent or irrelevant, whatever you prefer. Musings on what you're saying.
Okay.
Go for it. Because this is like, well, just to let everyone know, this is kind of our first podcast, isn't it?
It is. So yeah, this is
Yeah,
virgin territory for both
very
of
much
us.
so. So be prepared for utter ineptitude, basically.
Yeah. So we've never done anything like this before.
We don't normally even communicate with each other when we're together.
No.
Let alone on the internet or wherever.
It's usually, a few grunts.
Yeah,
and
if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So really, you should be privileged to ever do this.
We're actually trying to communicate with not just each other, but other people.
Other human beings. Not exclusively human beings.
No.
I mean,
it could be animals. I don't know.
If a cat or a dog enjoys what it hears, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I've got a cat here with me now.
Listening?
So
so a captive audience, literally.
Maybe a goldfish. I don't know, but they've only got
a short attention.
Is it a 3-second memory?
Yeah.
So
that attention span is probably the average cinema goer these days. So
yeah,
got something in common.
Yeah.
If Michael Bay films are anything to go by, anyway.
Is he still making films? I don't know.
Opened already with a controversial comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still making films, unfortunately.
Yeah. What was his last opus?
It was a Transformers movie. I think that's all he's making now. I think he's going to do another one. Thank God for that, eh? Holy Christ, thank you. Thank you, Jesus.
I've thankfully, I've not seen any of those.
I can. My claim, well, it's not a claim to fame, but my claim is I saw one, and that was more than enough. Thank you very much.
Mm.
And
I think
I've caught bits of them on TV. That I mean, I remember one. I can't remember what episode, what number it was, but to me, it was utterly incomprehensible.
Mm.
So I don't know. I just couldn't understand what was going on. Maybe that's an age thing.
Possibly.
It just seemed to be things blowing up every quarter of an hour and interspersed with like a bit of banal, inane dialogue.
I think people like things blowing up, don't they?
I think they do.
Big explosions.
I guess if this millennia has anything, if millions or thousands of years time in the future, people will look back, whatever race exists then, they'll look back and they'll see that the sort of noughties as the generation of things blowing up, I imagine.
Mm.
So there you go.
I learned that
We're digressing, but that's all right, isn't it?
Sorry?
We're digressing, but that's all right, isn't it?
I learned today that there has been so far 7 Fast and Furious films, and that in the course of those 7 films, 1,000 cars have been destroyed.
Real cars or like CGI cars?
Real cars, yeah.
Real cars.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's another franchise that I have never seen a film of.
Yeah, I saw the first one, and that was more than enough.
Oh, I tell a lie. I think I caught 20 minutes of one called Tokyo Drift that had none of the famous. It didn't have. Is The Rock in it? Is The Rock in it?
Vin Diesel, isn't it?
Is it? I get him mixed up. The Rock and Vin Diesel. I'm sure The Rock's in one as well, isn't he?
Possibly.
Well, it had none of the famous car. The Chris. What was he? Was he Chris Walker, the guy who died in a car?
Oh yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah.
It had none of them in it. It was like a really cheap knockoff, but it was still part of the franchise, and it had some sort of, sort of empty-headed pretty boy was the hero, and he went to Tokyo, so they obviously got a bit of Japanese money to film it in Japan. So anyway, it was awful what I saw of it. It was just like a car pornography, really.
Yeah.
There you go. Not for me.
Yeah. They're examples of films that won't change your life, or if they do,
well, they'll waste your life.
In what way?
They'll waste your life because you'll spend 2 hours watching it when you could have been doing something far more meaningful.
That's another podcast. Films where I feel like I've wasted my life.
Yeah, well, I think we are going to have one, aren't we? Have we given it a name yet? It wasn't like just the rant.
Yeah.
We're going to have a rant or a film we despise that we're just going to lay into.
Yeah, there's plenty of those, isn't there?
Without mercy. So anyway, drawing it back to the films that changed my life. So we're going to talk about, hopefully, good films now, not really shitty CGI fests. Go for it.
Okay, so the film, when you said about that, the film that first came to my mind was a film called Meantime, directed by Mike Leigh and starring Gary Oldman and Tim Roth and Phil Daniels. That I saw and you saw at the same time when we were studying drama at college. It was shown to us by our lecturer, Paddy Goymore, who is no longer with us, unfortunately.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Who, so that was like a sort of a game changer for me, because I'd never seen anything sort of remotely like that, and it was a different style of filmmaking. It was really real, really sort of gritty, grim, and the acting sort of was just like, I'd never seen anything like it, sort of, and Gary Oldman sort of inspired me to want to act, basically.
Would you go as far as to say it was a epoch moment for you, a sort of defining moment?
Yeah, yeah, it sort of opened my eyes to sort of another sort of
Right.
dimension of,
Yeah.
you know, the yeah, I just never seen anything like it, and it was just like it really sort of hit me when I saw it.
It's a very powerful, if anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a very powerful film, isn't it?
Yeah,
I guess it
yeah,
fits in the genre of social realism, I guess, if we're going to
yeah,
categorize it for people who haven't seen it.
yeah. And if you don't know anything about like Mike Leigh or the way he works, basically he doesn't have a script, and the actors sort of improvise the film
Yeah,
basically,
it's very
and
improv. They're very improv developed, aren't they? His scripts by
yeah, it
collaborations.
could say it's bordering on pretentious, like the way that he works, um, like because uh, I believe that the actors like don't know anything about like the character. You know, they're sort of introduced as they would be in real life, and they just live. They just inhabit those characters, and
I think I watched an Alan Yentob documentary about him
right,
because he was just and they were going into Mike Leigh's process. I can't remember what film he was having out at the time.
yeah,
It might have been the one about. Didn't he do one about an artist that had Timothy Spall in
oh
it?
yeah, Turner,
Turner.
yeah, with Timothy Spall, yeah,
Did I say Timothy Spall? Yeah. It was Turner. I think that was what he was promoting, but they went back. They looked back at his career as well and talked about
all
his process, and they spoke to actors and actresses about being part of that sort of ensemble.
right, yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. Um, I think a lot of his later stuff hasn't been that good, but like a lot of his early stuff was really interesting. Like, you know, Nuts in May, that was another good one.
Yeah, naked.
Yep, Naked,
I
yeah,
think he
very
was
good.
kind of that the earlier stuff. There was, I mean, maybe it's the same with every artist who as they get older they mellow a bit, but there was a lot more anger to his stuff. The earlier stuff, wasn't there? Really?
Yeah, there's a lot more sort of social comment, wasn't there? And
Yeah,
like sort
yeah,
of,
yeah, definitely.
uh, I suppose you could say he's sort of in a similar mold to Ken Loach, but I
Yeah,
never really liked Ken Loach. I thought Ken Loach was a bit more political and,
yeah. His
you know,
stuff
in
was kind
his,
of more. It was sort of more polemic, and if you like, the message was more in your face, wasn't it? The political. Although I
yeah.
did like the recent one he did, I Daniel Blake.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I just think that
Um,
was really good. That was that sort of got the balance of political diatribe and heartfelt drama. It kind of got the balance right, which
mm.
some of his stuff maybe didn't always do. But yeah, I suppose you'd put him in that. That was the same sort of they were in the same sort of peer group, weren't they? Really, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't know whether Mike Leigh was interested in being political. He was more just, I don't know. I don't know
Seems
really.
like he's more interested in people. I'd say
Yeah,
people's motivations.
yeah. And you know, he always seemed like, you know, it was more of a collaboration, you know, with the actors rather than like a lot of directors. Uh, they just move the actors around like they're sort of chess
Yeah.
pieces, but he sort of gave the actors license to create these
Yeah, you
characters
do get the
totally.
impression, don't you, that unlike someone like maybe Hitchcock, who didn't they always attribute him with saying that actors are like cattle or something, that
Yeah,
he
yeah,
actually enjoyed being around actors, Mike Leigh does.
yeah, and seeing them being creative and like
Yeah.
sort of improvising and just let them do what they can do. And uh, well, in that film particularly, I think like all the performances, um, uh, they showed sort of what they could
Yeah, they
do.
were top
And
notch. The top notch
yeah,
performances.
yeah, it just made me want to sort of uh, try and do some of that. And
I think what,
uh,
like you were saying, I mean, obviously we watched it kind of together when our drama teacher showed it, and I think that's exactly what you say. Probably more than what the film was about, it was the performances to me that, because you know when you've been used to a diet of Hollywood movies, which probably we had been up to then, and not that there's anything wrong in that, but that kind of hyper reality type stuff, the escapist kind of Hollywood stuff, which is good. But I mean, you know, it's got its place as well. But I think with this, it kind of spoke to us as sort of British kids, really, didn't it?
yeah,
And
it was not a million miles from, although like it was like in a city.
yeah,
Um, it was like sort of working class
yes, exactly, yeah.
people,
We could relate to
and
it. It
it's
was
not.
relatable, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. You might know some of those people.
Yeah, you probably did, and I know growing up, you know, like skin, because it's, you know, we should perhaps say that Gary Oldman's character is sort of like a drunken, yobbish skinhead.
Mm.
And I'm sure for you, and same for me, growing up in like the late 70s, early 80s,
Yeah,
you know,
that is Britain.
you mingled with people like that, didn't you?
Yeah, and you had experiences of like uh, unemployment and
Yeah.
council estates. I grew up on a council estate, although not a grotty, not a really grotty, horrible one. But
And
a
everyone,
nor-
you know, we must have known at least one person with an anarchist symbol on their denim jacket.
yeah, I knew sort of skinheads,
Yeah, exactly.
like sniffing glue and
Yeah,
stuff. I
having a crafty fag, you know, like when you shouldn't,
Yeah, and
and a
all that sort of stuff.
bottle of
So
white lightning.
yeah, so yeah, it wasn't a million miles from what I knew, sort of thing.
So that's the kind of character
Um,
Gary Oldman plays, isn't it? Like a sort of skinhead yobbo type.
yeah,
um, who's just really kind of lost and doesn't really have any direction in life and just kicks about, like, you know, terrorizing people and, you know, just getting drunk and just messing about,
yeah,
smashing stuff up like phone boxes and, you know, bus stations and stuff, bus shelters.
that's it. And Tim Roth's character is sort of, well, how would you describe his character?
Well, what's the PC term? I guess intellectually challenged.
Yeah,
Is that allowed to say that nowadays?
learning difficulties, or
Yeah, definitely. He's, you know, the character certainly exhibits that kind of behavior, doesn't he?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and of course,
and
he's a magnet for bullying and, you know, um,
which Gary Oldman is, he does a bit, doesn't
yeah,
he?
yeah, definitely bullying. And again, I think, you
Uh,
know, we as in at school, you knew people like that who perhaps weren't always the brightest spark, and they were a magnet for bullies and exploitation, weren't they?
they're vulnerable, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, exactly.
And then you've got Phil Daniels' character, who's like Tim Roth's character's brother,
Yeah.
and he's like a very sort of um,
Well, he's just angry,
anti.
isn't he?
Yeah, he's really angry about everything,
Yeah,
isn't he?
everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, his
uh,
lack of employment prospects he resents his parents because he just sees them as, you know, old fossils.
yeah, he hates his dad, doesn't he? And
Yeah.
but I think there's probably part of him that thinks I'm going to end up. He's angry because he thinks I'm going to
Well,
end
you
up
could
like.
almost, you know, you almost think maybe if they ever did a sequel, say they did a film like, you know, 30 years after, um, he could have actually been ended up just like his dad, couldn't he? And
Yeah,
it's almost like what they tried to do with Train Spotting too, maybe. But I mean, you could envisage, if you know, it would have been a bad idea to do that. But I mean, because it's a very self-contained film, but you can imagine how the trajectory of those characters, and you can imagine the Phil Daniels character just turning out just like his old man, embittered and resentful.
Yeah.
You know, and sort of strict and a bit of a bully and brutal as well, like because he's quite aggressive towards his children, isn't he? And
Yeah.
so yeah, you could just imagine how he turns out, and that, like you said, that he probably resents that even more. That's the inevitability of how he's going to end up.
Mm.
But I agree with what you say, Mill. Like watching stuff like that. I mean, that to me, like yourself, I would say that it showed what the potential of performance and acting, and what a film can do, sort of thing. How it
Mm.
can make you feel,
Yeah.
how it can inspire you, because that, like yourself, I found that very inspirational.
Yeah.
Watching Meantime.
I'm sure some people probably sort of watch it and think, oh, it's really boring. Not a lot
Yeah, why
happens.
do I
It's
need
like
to watch a
really,
film like that? Because I can just look out the window and
yeah,
that's just like my mates down the pub, or that's just that's my street. So what's the point? I want escapism. I want Fast and Furious 26.
yeah. I don't want real life.
But
That's depressing. But it said something to me at that time.
definitely, yeah,
Um,
especially when you're
I
that
haven't,
age.
I haven't watched it for a long time, but I'm sure, like, I'd still like it.
Oh yeah, I did watch
Probably,
it a few years back again, and it still has the power to provoke you and
yeah,
make you angry, make you, and we must also say some of it is hilariously funny as well.
yeah,
It's not all like dour
yeah,
kind of doom and gloom. It is, some of it is side-splittingly hilarious.
yeah. That's why I liked it as
Yeah,
well. Yeah, it's got
exactly.
a lot of moments of comedy in
As
it.
you have in real life, there's moments of like tragedy and desperation and depression, and then you do have like moments of comedy that sort of come out of that situation, don't you?
Yeah,
So it is almost a black comedy in a sense, to a degree. But
and it
yeah,
did. There was I can't completely remember, but there's a moment where Tim Roth's character actually does sort of stand up for himself, and you know,
yeah, oh yeah, he's not
um,
completely like a passive, weak character, is he?
no.
They're not. I mean, that's
So
the thing. They are. You could say, you could argue that, oh, and it sounds like these characters are kind of stereotypes, but um, they are pretty well rounded. Although, I mean, I don't, without getting into all of Mike Leigh's sort of output, um, well, you may disagree with this, but you can say you can disagree with me, and or try and convince me otherwise. But I always find Mike Leigh, I love his stuff. Not so much perhaps his newer stuff. He seems to be doing a lot of sort of biographical things now that don't really interest me so much. Didn't he do something about like the Pirates of Penzance? Didn't he do something about them? Yes.
yeah, I didn't see
No, it
that.
doesn't
No.
really interest me, that sort of stuff. Um, but that he's, and I don't know if he does it. I'm sure. I mean, it must be deliberate. He's a smart guy, but he always seems to insert in all his films, the ones I've seen anyway. I haven't seen some of the newer stuff, but there always seems to be a real cliched stereotype character.
Mm.
Um, and the one that springs to mind. I mean, I don't know if he does this deliberately or whether it's for contrast or whether it's just it's like a shtick that he's got or whatever. But in the meantime, it's the hippie kind of hippy dippy social
Oh,
worker,
social. Yeah,
and
yeah,
reprised the, well, he didn't reprise the role, but he was in Naked as well, wasn't he?
that's right.
Wasn't
Yeah,
wasn't he like oh, didn't he
was this
what was he in that? What
or
was he in Naked?
I, I'm not sure.
Wasn't he a security guard or something?
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Did you say security guard? Sorry,
That's what
sorry. Yeah,
I
you
thought.
cut out there. That's what it. Yeah. So, and he was a bit of a stereotype character as well, I thought, in Naked. And it's
Mm.
just the people who haven't seen Naked. That's another sort of social, realistic kind of drama.
Yeah, that's very grim, isn't
That's
it?
even
Like,
grimmer. Yeah, that's David Thewlis is in that, isn't he? And he's another
yeah,
really
he's brilliant.
angry young man, isn't he? Just angry with society.
Yeah.
And ultimately he's angry with himself as well, isn't he?
Yeah. Didn't he basically he raped someone, didn't he?
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's
Is
why
that,
he's kind of doesn't he run away to London because he's up for a rape charge?
yeah.
Oh, he's like
So I
really
mean,
sort of he's really misogynistic, and he sort of treats women like like dirt, really, doesn't he?
and his idea of life, like his theories on sort of, he has all these theories, doesn't he, like about barcodes
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
666 as 666 in the barcode. I remember
yeah.
that.
There's a bit of a tinfoil hat sort of brigade sensibility about him, isn't there?
He's really intelligent, though, isn't he? He's
Yes,
very
that's it.
sort of,
Yeah, he's well read, isn't he? He's well read,
yeah.
but
No,
he's just
that's
sort of regaling against society, isn't he? Like the norms and.
yeah,
But that's definitely one to that's worth watching if you if you want sort of Mike Leigh is sort of grimmest and most realistic, then go for Naked and
yeah,
Meantime. I would suggest.
definitely. There is, yeah,
But
yeah, definitely two to recommend there.
if anyone wants to comment on what they think of these films, or, or just Mike Leigh in general, I mean, I'd be interested to hear about because I I've not really read any studies about his work, so I mean, I'm just going by what I've seen of his films. But like I say, the insertion of like a sort of slightly cliched character, I wonder if that is deliberate because I thought the guy in, if we're getting back to Meantime, the guy who was like the social worker, he seemed to be coming from a different film,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sort of
It
jars a
was
bit, doesn't
jarring,
it?
exactly, yeah, because everyone else was kind of doing the whole, method type social realism type thing, and here's a guy who really stood out as like this guy's. First I think I thought it was overacting. I think
Yeah.
I just thought he's a crap actor, but then I wondered if it was just like deliberate, like Mike Leigh had given directions. I want you to be really over the top and like a stereotype,
Mm.
but not knowing.
I've heard that well, I've sort of read that he gives very little sort of direction at all, really.
Right.
On, but I may be wrong on that. I don't know.
It just seems like, I
Um,
mean, like I say, maybe it's in my imagination, but I always, the films I've seen of his, I always kind of detect there's a character who is like the stereotype. And I haven't seen all of his films by a long margin, but like I say, him, that guy, the social worker in Meantime, and the same actor, funny enough, playing the security guard in Naked, um, they both kind of seem very stereotyped type characters. And I've seen other, I can't think of any other. Well, like Nuts and May, I suppose you could say. I mean, some of the characters in that a little bit.
yeah, that's more comedy, isn't it? That's more sort
It's
of
almost
they are.
almost 40 Towers esque, isn't it?
It's yeah that's not as much realism, is it?
No, well,
Um,
that was a very early work of his, isn't it? I suppose he was still finding his kind of voice, as it were. But
Stedman's character, she's very sort of over the top,
yeah,
isn't
it's
she?
very fake, superficial kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Abigail's
Abigail's
party. Yeah,
party,
yeah. That's right.
like she, like again, like she's very over. It's more comedy, I think, those ones. Although they still sort of have like poignant
I
moments.
wonder how
In
influence, because there's a kind of bit of Pinteresque sort
yeah,
of
yes,
tone about those early works, isn't there?
yeah, definitely, yeah,
Sort of exaggerated
yeah,
characters, exaggerated. I mean, maybe again, he sort of he was around at that time, wasn't he? So I guess he was perhaps influenced by what he saw around him. And in fact, wasn't Abigail's Party a play originally
I don't know.
Before
Yeah,
the
I
BBC
think so,
filmed it? I could be wrong
possibly.
there. I'm sure someone will tell us if we're wrong. That's another thing. We will be wrong about everything because so I'm sure people will say, no, that's crap. That's bullshit. but we'll allow you to criticize.
Maybe we should have a disclaimer saying like this,
But it's our own opinion, isn't
purely
it?
our
Like you
own.
say, our own sort of theories and impressions on.
We've not got a
No, I'm sure, like you, I
fact
never
checker.
even went back to what I've got it on DVD somewhere, but I didn't think, I'll watch it in preparation. So going from
No,
memory,
just sort of, I don't know.
emotion
Yeah,
memory, as the drama teacher used to say, as Paddy used to say. So yeah,
yeah.
carry on. I mean, what sort of from that? What did you? So you watched Meantime, and it inspired you. And so, do you think,
Hmm.
you know, did it sort of open your eyes? Was it like a revelation, a revelatory moment?
Well, yeah, it was really because that inspired me to. Um, well, I explored sort of. I'd never seen Gary Oldman or Tim Roth in anything, so I sort of tried to seek out sort of things that they'd been in or things that they were going to be in.
Yeah, because
And Mike
Oldman,
Lees.
Oldman,
So
he
that
that was a.
was a
I don't know if that was his acting debut, but it was a very early part for him, wasn't it? And then he went on
yeah.
to.
I think
I'm not sure if that was his next film, but I think probably the next thing I saw him in was Sid and Nancy, probably. And
yeah,
then
probably the same.
was he did The
Then
Firm, didn't you? Do you remember The
moved to
Firm?
Hollywood, and
Football.
that's right. Yep, yep, yep. I
I
really
think that was his last
really like that as well.
UK sort of based. I mean, I know he's done stuff where he's played a British person or whatever, an Englishman, but that was kind of his calling card to Hollywood, wasn't it? And then he went on. I think that was his last thing that he ever sort of did. Certainly the last thing he ever did for TV, because that was a BBC production, wasn't it? Again.
Yeah, yeah. It's a we did do some
Well, there was
stage
France and
work, I
Guildenstern,
think,
wasn't there?
before that. Oh yes, yeah, that was with Tim Roth. Yeah, that was very good. Yeah, yeah. No, it'd be probably never happen now. But like, it'd be good to see him sort of back on sort of doing a British sort of
Yeah, I wonder if he just get fed up doing little
thing.
bit parts, and well, I know he did Churchill and stuff, but I mean recently, but you know, that's the other thing. I know, but
Now he's
obviously
got an
we're not
Oscar.
going
He'll
to talk about
probably.
this now, but I was just telling Kelvin a few nights back. I tried to watch The Hitman's Bodyguard on Netflix, which I failed to do because I just
Hmm.
sort of lost all interest in it. But I might try and watch it again just to, I don't know, rile myself up or whatever, because it just seemed very kind of by the numbers comedy action movie. But I forgot to say to you that Gary Oldman's in it playing like a comedy
Oh
Russian.
right. Oh,
He likes,
he
yeah,
likes a
yeah.
good
He's kind of
accent, doesn't
playing. Well, I think he's supposed to be
Eastern.
Russian or Eastern European at the very least, and he's kind of adopted the same accent he had in Air Force One. So
Oh
he's
yeah.
playing some sort of vicious despot that carries out executions and stuff. So you might say topical at the moment. I don't know, but yeah,
I might give it a
I
go.
didn't see. I just saw him introduced, and he was like talking like that, and and I think he's brought up to he's in the Hague for war crimes or something. So he's like and then there's a big shootout, and anyway,
uh,
I kind of lost the interest in it. But it might be worth just to see Gary Oldman do a comedy Russian accent again.
yeah, yeah. Maybe one day we can do. I could, you can do your favorite actors, and I would do a retrospective of Gary Oldman
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was going to go
podcast.
for someone like Christopher
Um,
Walken. You kind of nabbed Oldman,
yeah,
but
that's a
that's
good one.
fair dues. I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe someone like him, or some like slightly more obscure, someone like who. I mean, I remember we had this. We had a bit of a sort of. There was a bit of. I don't know if you call it a bromance, but for when we were younger, Michael Bean wasn't there. You know, I might sort of do something about someone who nearly made it but then didn't, because he was on the cusp, wasn't he? Really, of
Does he?
you know, he done a lot of big movies, James Cameron movies, and he did some Jerry Bruckheimer. I think he was in The Rock with Sean Connery and Nick Cage. Yeah, he's like one of the SWAT team.
Was he?
But
Right. Is he still going?
yeah,
Is
he's
he
still
still
but it's sort of
doing
straight
stuff
to
or?
DVD or whatever the term is, video. It's straight to video kind of horror stuff now. So, go
What was that? He did a really good
yeah, about the
TV
serial
movie
killer.
where he was a
I can't think of it off the top of my head,
yeah. I can't remember what.
but he was brilliant in that, and I'll tell you, he's
It was
also
really
really
good.
good in a really obscure um, William Friedkin movie. See, he's another guy. I might have to do, you know, a
Oh
director. If
right.
we're talking directors, I might have to do William Friedkin at some point. But he's in a film called Rampage that I don't even think you can get in the UK on DVD or Blu-ray or anything. I've got an old VHS copy of it, and he's basically a cop
Yeah.
who's hunting this serial killer. And it's kind of a very deranged film. I think it was around a lot of time when there was a lot of fascination with serial killers. You had stuff like you had Silence of the Lambs and Manhunter and stuff like that. Sort of like it was a late 80s kind of
Mm.
serial killer movie. There was quite a few around that time, and then of course the big one was Silence of the Lambs. But yeah, it's a really good film. It's called Rampage, and I don't think many people have even ever heard of it. But I mean, it's you know, it's William Friedkin. You know, he was kind of still a pretty big thing in the 80s, but he'd done To Live and Die in LA, for instance. It was either before that.
Yeah.
That's Friedkin, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah.
That's William Defoe, isn't it?
He's in
And
that.
is it William Peterson? William Defoe, William Peterson, who was in Manhunter.
That's it. Who's in?
Yeah, yeah. But
He's
that's
in Manhunter. Yeah,
it kind of
yeah.
fits between Friedkin's French Connection work and I'm sure it was before To Live and Die in LA, but it might have been after. But if you ever get a chance to watch it, it's worth a watch. It's very very stylistic as you might expect from Friedkin. I hear he's doing some documentary about exorcism at the moment. Um,
Oh right.
he's got to be 80,
How old
isn't
is
he?
he? Must be.
Because I recently bought The Sorcerer. I'd never seen that film. The 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 Wages of
Oh
Fear
yeah. No, I've never seen
remake,
that.
isn't it?
I, I think you were telling me about it, isn't it? Where they're in a truck and they're trying to drive these.
Nitroglycerin,
Is
yeah,
it
they got his nitroglycerin
nitroglycerine or
barrels, and they're
something?
trying to. It's like some tin pot third world country, and they're trying to get this, yeah, nitroglycerin from one part of the island to the other without it blowing up, basically, because it's so volatile. And it's got another favourite actor of mine in it, Roy Scheider. Or is it Schneider? Is it Roy Schneider
Oh
or
yeah.
Scheider?
Yeah.
Roy Scheider, isn't it? I don't want to get confused with Rob Schneider. That would be
I
horrendous.
don't know. And you shattered my illusion that Rob Schneider or Scheider
Yeah, I don't know where
is not his
I think
son.
I just thought like Schneider, Roy Schneider, Roy Schneider. I'll have to double check, but I just thought it's such an unusual name that there can't be two actors called Schneider or Scheider. So he must be, so they must be related, but they're not related.
But they're
No,
not.
which is because I'm pretty sure their names are spelled differently. Oh well, yeah, you wouldn't
That's
really
good in
want
a
to
way.
be
I mean,
related
because
to Roy Schneider, would you? Sorry, Rob Schneider. I, I'm walking and I'm going to get a
Juice
copy
Bigelow.
of. I've got a. I'm just looking on my DVD case. Where's Blue Thunder? Because then I can tell you exactly what the spelling of Roy Schneider's name is. And look at that. I can't bloody find it. Typical, isn't it? Don't know. Write in and tell us. I don't know. Can you write in? Send a thought wave. Send something. Send money. Oh, there it is. Blue Thunder. Hold on. I'll tell you. It is Roy. It is Roy Scheider. So I think it's Rob Schneider, isn't it?
Schneider.
So it's Roy Scheider.
Oh, is
Anyway,
it?
yeah, we could talk about Roy Schneider because everyone knows him from Jaws and Jaws 2, but there's a whole lot more to Roy Scheider than that. One of which is Sorcerer, which according to Mark Commode is a masterpiece, and he says, according to him, better than The Exorcist. And I don't think I'd go that far, to be fair. Very much for me, it's very much a film of two halves. The first half, I know we're getting onto another film here, but the first half is the setup's a little bit overlong, I thought, because they're getting all these characters together, you know, they're all misfits, and you know, they all come from different walks of life, so they all clash. But the setup to all this seems to take a little bit long to get going, and then the actual sort of nuts and bolts of the film is over quite quickly. You know, the actual transportation of the nitroglycerine to the other end of the island seems to be quite rushed. But though the second half of the film, or maybe it's more probably the last third of the film is very tense and exciting. So it nearly makes up for the sort of slow burn beginning, but for me, not quite. I mean, for me, the Exorcist is a bloody masterpiece. You know, I'd never get tired of watching that film.
That scared the life out of me.
Yeah,
When I
scared the living shit out of me. Oh my god, yeah, and it's just such an amazing. It's just such a unique film. There's never been another film like it. I mean, you get all these jump scare, crappy horror films nowadays, like The Last Exorcism and all these other, you know, crappy knockoffs, but nothing will ever have the power of the power. The power of Christ compels you. But no other film has Max von Sydow in it as well. Well, apart from the films with Max von Sydow in it. Well, maybe there's another one, Max von Sydow hour. I'm sure I could talk an hour about Max von Sydow.
I mean, yeah. What he's had
the guy just looks.
Career,
he's never aged. He's always looked old, isn't he? He's always looked old, so he just never. Yeah. It's like he's ageless. I'm sure. You know, I'm sure he must have drunk from the fountain of eternal youth or something, or eternal age, or eternal life, or something. Because how old is he? Is he 200 years old? I mean, he looked about. Yeah. I mean, he looked about 170. I mean, I know they made him look older, but and that was wasn't that the 60s or something?
Yeah.
But anyway, another class act.
Yeah, another. I've just thought of someone else that I would like to maybe talk about another time.
Ah, Freddie.
Freddie Jones.
You've got an anecdote about Freddie. Are you gonna save your anecdote until the Freddie Jones retrospective?
I'll save that.
I think you should just tease people. Yeah. Just tease people with it. You've got an anecdote, haven't you?
I've got an anecdote about a signed photograph of Freddie Jones.
Tell the good people. Tell the good people where they may have seen Freddie Jones.
They may have seen him in various David Lynch films, such as.
He's in June. Yes, he's in June. Yeah.
He's in June, isn't he? He's in.
Yeah.
Obviously, The Elephant Man, and he's in. He's
is it one of the Twin Peaks movies?
He's in.
The Twin Peaks movie.
He's in What Heart?
Not Far Walk with Me. Isn't he in that?
Possibly.
What was the one? Well, you got to do the impersonation now. But what was the one that I mean, I've just put this. I've just kind of thrown this on you. But I mean, you're going to do an impersonation. What is that from? Oh, he's in Wild at Heart.
From
right,
Wild at Heart.
Cue the impersonation, please.
his only sort of dialogue is.
I'll tell you what, that was class. That was like Freddie Jones was in the room with me now.
Good?
So, but we'll yeah. So just tease the the adoring public with a Freddie Jones anecdote, and then you'll have when you do your Freddie Jones retrospective.
Yeah, because he's like if you go on IMDb and look up Freddie Jones and you look at his career, it spans from David Lynch to
it
now.
Is Emmerdale,
he
isn't
is
it?
in
I knew he was
Emmerdale, which is he's been in Emmerdale for about 5, maybe more years. Like
Bill actors got to eat.
He's I mean he
again another one, isn't it?
He's always been old. He's always. I mean, I don't know when the Elephant Man was
80,
filmed,
so it's probably 79, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, that's however long that is.
There seems to be a very particular
he looked old.
Sort of kind of actor who they like. I would put Freddie Jones, obviously Max von Sydow. You could probably put John Hurt into that. They've always looked old, and John Hurt pretty much stayed the same, didn't he? Like for like 40 years or whatever.
That's right.
It's
frozen
strange,
in time.
Strange. No, exactly. Because they didn't even really look young when they were young, did they? So
no,
maybe that's the sort of trick, isn't it? To look like you're preserved in amber or something. Well, that's it. They were character
actors, don't they? Because it's like
they probably went. We want a face. Get me a. You can imagine the studio's ex, can't you? Saying, "Get me a face." And they'd get you a Freddie Jones or a Max von Sydow or a John Hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
So do you think should we wrap that up for our first podcast? Our inaugural
I think that's pretty good.
I hope I pronounced that right. Inaugural podcast or spodcast, I should say. So this was Calvin's movies that changed my life. And maybe I think probably what I will do for mine, just to do a little teaser for the next one. I think I did a little think about this today, and I was thinking what to choose. Because Star Wars was basically the film that changed my life, but that's probably the film that changed bloody thousands of people's lives, because that was the first film that I saw post Disney movies, really. So it was like every film I'd seen previous to that was like a Disney film. So I was used to like cartoons and animated, cute little creatures and blah, 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 and dwarfs and Bambi and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was the first live action film that I saw, and it blew my tiny mind. But everyone's done Star Wars. So I'm going to do, which blew my mind just as much in perhaps a slightly smaller way. And when I saw it several years later, I think probably on TV, but there is a connection there, kind of, because it's science fiction, and I'm going to do Silent Running. But that's for next time. Unless I change my mind and do something completely different, of course.
Good choice.
So I would just like to say thank you for listening, if you listened. Thanks to the cat, if that was listening, and all the animals that were also tuning in, and I personally will hope you can make it back, and like to do this again sometime. So Ashley Beeching, signing out.
Yep. And Kelvin Millen signing out. Till the next time.
Bye.
On Spodcast.